record on this computer. Recording. Okay. So welcome. Thank you. It's an intimate group. It's just me and Celeste today. And that's totally great. That gives us the floor pretty much to discuss whatever we have to discuss.
That could be scary.
That could be. Yeah. We're just off our reins pretty much.
Now, does it automatically put it live on Facebook when you make the event that way?
Which way?
When you make your event with the meeting right in it? We always have to share it to Facebook.
Oh, no, I haven't. I didn't make it live.
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I technically, if I put Facebook on right now and then did a live, I think I would just do a screen share, right?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I think
Stephanie
so.
does that.
Okay.
Stephanie always does that.
I'm going to try it.
I'm not very techy.
Let's give it a shot. Let's just see what happens.
I think, I can't, well, I'm not a host, so that button's not going to be here for me.
And I wonder if it's going to.
Like shares it with Facebook.
Huh.
Oh, you froze for a minute.
Am I freezing?
There you are.
Yeah.
You're
okay. I think it's probably trying to use a ton of bandwidth between both Zoom and Facebook. That might be an issue for me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's okay. Hi, Andy. Oh, look, now it works. Okay, but it's saying use camera. And I'm going to do a screen share. Andy, we're going to do this live and record it. And I do not want this. Webcam, communication, microphone. Yep. Now, where's the screen share? This one. Okay. That should be it. That's it right there. See, that's what I see. Do you see what let's see. Okay, let's see. Moving forward. Number 2, Zoom. Join us. And go live. So now we're live too. Why not? And I'm in space, which totally makes sense.
I love it.
Hey, Andy, how are you? Hey. Okay, so I do have an itinerary today, and we have about 50 minutes, and I'm sure we all have busy lives right now. So I'm going to power through this, go through the itinerary, do a quick introduction, and then just like go over basically what I want to accomplish. Set the attention, throw down some bullet points, and then get everybody's what contribution do you think you could be to the group? What charitable acts could we come up with? And then do a Q&A or discussion in case there's anything you need for clarification. Sound good?
Okay.
Okay. So thank you for being here, first of all. And anybody who couldn't make it, that's why we record these things. So I've had a ton of people, actually I had about 10 people ask me for the link for the last event. So even though we only had like 4 or 5, right? There was a ton of people that were interested, but they were just at work or whatever. So I'm glad that we have the technology to do this, and people can tune in and catch up. Plus, we'll have these every week, and of course, I'm going to be offering classes, donation-based classes moving forward. That people they'll see enough of me to where they can be sick of me eventually. So although this is something I want to make clear, because I've obviously been very vocal about where I stand, and I want to use all of this as a positive catalyst, call it a catalyst. I want to use all of this as a positive event moving forward. So even though it's been like I had no idea that I had any sort of motivation politically ever. It never really mattered to me, Um, and then you become a dad, and then all of a sudden, whatever happens, the world does matter to you because your children are going to inherit it. And I was living under the belief that all of the that everybody was equal, that women and men were being treated equal, and people of color or people not of color were all being treated equal, but it's just statistically it's not true. I think it's interesting when I've spoken to a few of my friends in the last week about some that are just like, no, like they're like, discrimination is gone, that's just a myth, or that's just like a urban legend or something. And it's like, well, no, don't even listen to the media. If you go to the FBI website, there were 8,000 hate crimes last year alone, and it's like a 16-year high. And were those on the news? No. So we're not being told the truth, we're not being exposed to it. Um and that's what's got me all fired up. It's not who's running for what. I don't care what color, what side you're on at the end of the day. Because what's up, Orlando? Because what's the real issue is this. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to doubt any of your power, but I doubt any of us here are marching to DC tomorrow, right? To go start lobbying for new legislature. Okay, so what can I do? Well, on a community level, that's what I want to focus on. That the politics was the problem, but that's not the focus moving forward. Moving forward, it's what are the solutions? That's what I want to focus on. Because the social issues, like had I known that there were so many issues as far as like discrimination and like bullying. It's funny because bullying exists in school and in adulthood, and on offline and offline. And so that doesn't matter. 4 years from now, somebody else will be in office. 4 years after that, somebody else will be in office. And other than voting, I will have nothing that I can really do about that. But on a community level, there's absolutely something I can do. And that's why I'm trying to activate and inspire and unify um, and mobilize teachers, people that teach about love and awareness, and that shows up in different ways. For some people, it's astrology. Other people, it's yoga. Tina Jones teaches conflict resolution. I teach sacred geometry. I teach a self-healing, self-coaching method called Soul Root Alchemy. Um, Teaching, I mean, even just going over the history of the United States, I mean, really all over the world, like to think that hate crimes are isolated to the United States is silly. Um, to really to really take a global view and realize that our children will inherit the earth, and how we educate them will determine what happens in the next 50 to 100 years. And so that's my focus moving forward. That's what I would like to do. Let's see if I've missed anything. Oh, I did have a crazy kind of download though. Hey, so how crazy is this? I realized this at like 5 in the morning. So, well, like one of the most used words I've heard in the last 2 years ever, I never heard my whole life, is the word toxic. Right? Can we all agree that that's like the most overused word in the last 2 years? Okay, I'm glad we can agree on that. People have people have applied the word toxic to just about every aspect of life. And what's interesting is, like, in reality, like, food systems are toxic right now, and water is toxic, and not just behavior. People are labeling masculinity and femininity as toxic, or this relationship is toxic, or that person is toxic. Okay, let's just say they're right for our sake of argument. So doesn't that mean we need to detoxify our 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 planet and ourselves and our relationships and our, you know, like it seems like I know that's an oversimplified answer, but isn't that a good focus? It may,
Absolutely.
And maybe that, if that is the problem, right? Because I mean, in alchemy, you can't make gold out of nothing. You need lead, right? So gold is the solution, and the problem is the lead. So, and lead is toxic. Isn't that an interesting thing? Negative emotions, negative thoughts, and negative actions are all toxic. They're just like lead. They're heavy, they're poisonous, and they will give us very little value unless we process them to take us to, I think, a better place. So, Celeste, were you going to say something?
No, I agree totally. That has been a huge theme, especially the past couple of months, is trying to pull that toxicity out of our lives. And it is in so many, it's in all of it. It is, just like you said, it's in the food we eat, it's in the relationships we have, it's in the decisions we make, it's in how we feel about ourselves. And if we don't begin to change that and shift it, then we can't come to a different place. We can't be where we really want to be.
Yeah, I agree. And as you say that, it like kind of gave me a, like, look at the plastic in the oceans, right? I mean, I have to be hyper aware of that owning a glass bottle company.
Mhm.
Um, the amount of chemicals they're using in food. Um, a lot of the ways I believe in capitalism, but there's in a lot of ways there's toxic capitalism too. I think there's a balanced way to run capitalism, but then there's another way that's, it's obviously not sustainable. It's obviously not leaving a good planet for our kids. Um, this year, with everybody being in quarantine, I mean, how many people? I mean, what are the reports on alcoholism, drug
Mhm.
abuse, domestic violence, suicide, self-harm, like through the roof,
Through the roof.
through the roof. And I think if you're an average everyday person, your job is to take care of yourself. When you're a teacher and a healer, we kind of have the added responsibility of helping people um, recognize those things and heal. And that's why, to me, going out and engaging in civil war is not the answer. The To me, the answer is education, because the answer to ignorance is not more ignorance, and it sure as hell ain't hate or violence. It's, you know like, it's not a fight fire with fire answer. It's a, fight fire with water, like education. Gandhi was like, fear has three heads. It's ignorance, it's apathy, and it's hate. And so we'll work through the other two, but right now, like, the thing that I'm passionate about is education. And people immediately, I think, might, just to be clear, people might think that I'm talking about school. I'm not. I'm talking about, what I'm talking about is practical knowledge that helps you work through your emotions and your decisions in a healthy way. And at any other time in life, I think that could have been a luxury self-help course. And I think we're getting to the point where it's a survival course,
Yep.
you know, for a
It
lot
is.
of people. Yeah.
COVID has been an interesting time for people to really take a look at their lives.
Hmm.
It's been an opportunity to really step back and see what kind of an environment that they lived in, and where their beliefs really lie, and how they really want their lives to be. And it's been a I think it's been good. I'm,
Hmm.
I know a lot of people have really struggled, and I feel their struggles, but I think it's been nice to watch people open their eyes up a little bit more. I know this year has been huge for me. I've never, ever considered myself to be someone that discriminates against anyone, but it amazed me this year, the stuff that came out, and the things that I did not know, that I was not aware about in history, and stuff still happening. It's just crazy. um, I know, we like to think that, like you said, that discrimination doesn't happen, but it does. And it's insane the way these people feel. And no one should walk their daily lives living in that kind of fear. When I was living in San Diego a few years ago, I was dating a man of color, and we went out one night, and a friend of mine had let me borrow her Maserati. to drive and to take out. And we went to the mall, and then we went to the movies, and we went to dinner. And when we came out, it was like 9:30, and I had parked far away in the parking lot because I didn't want anybody scratching her car, right?
Mm, good call.
And we start walking out, and we're walking to the car, and there's a police car parked a little bit near it. And he grabbed my arm and walked me the other way. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, we're not going to that
We're
car
not
right
going to
now.
that car.
And I said, why? What? He's like, there's police officers there. They're going to arrest me. I got no business getting in that car. And I'm like, come on. And it was real. The fear that he had was real. And I was like, oh my God, like my heart broke. I'm like, this is not okay. People should not live in that kind of fear for doing nothing but living their life.
Right. Well, not just any life, but the life that was sold to us, the pursuit of happiness, you know, the American dream.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, and then you accomplish it, and then you get shot. Like you go through all the heartache and the hard work and everything to escalate yourself to a higher plane, and then you still have to worry about getting random searched at the airport. You know, and it's not just people of color. And I mean, mind you, I've experienced racism. When I was 5, I was thrown off a bus because the bus driver thought I was a native Canadian. I was in Canada, and me and my friends, and it was a snowstorm outside. Like we got thrown out like to the wolves pretty much on the way to school. And he was like, "You can act like a bunch of wild Indians on the reservation, but not on my bus." You know. And how many job opportunities have I missed because I'm half Filipino? I will never know. How many women presidents are there?
Right.
How many women of color presidents are there? How many men of color presidents? There's been 45. If you take it to 44, cut it into 4, there should be 11 of each. Like, and I'm not saying that that's how every race should end, but like, there's never even been a contest between, you know. It's never even come up. So when people try to tell me that there isn't systemic racism, I'm like, look at the numbers. Don't look at me. Don't look at CNN. Like statistically across the board, look at who's making what money, who's got what job. Look at which neighborhoods are being over-policed. Look at the populations of people in prison. And it's not an opinion. It's certainly not one I want to have. I love living in the bubble where everybody's treated fairly, you know, but that's just not the statistics. So I would have spent the last 10 years, I would have spent half the time teaching about how beautiful diversity is, and then the other half teaching sacred geometry instead of the whole time talking about shapes, you know. And that's stuff that my kids are going to have to learn. I mean, now luckily my 18-year-old is like, he's just built like me. He does not have a predisposition for discrimination. Doesn't mean that I haven't or something. I mean, I'm sure that we all have some sort of bias, you know. I mean, just look at how we pick kids for the kickball team, right? Like we all have a certain idea of who should fit in what slot. It's biological. It's not always psychological. There's tribalism is written into our code because it's like a survival method, right? But like at some point we have to stop acting like cavemen and start questioning our own motivations. If we're truly calling ourselves woke, if we're truly calling ourselves enlightened beings, it's like, why aren't we questioning some of these behaviors and beliefs in us that are extremely limiting and hurtful to other people, you know? That's why I feel like, you know, we can use the resources that we have despite COVID, despite lockdowns. We can still, you know, unify and co-promote each other and share these messages of positivity, because people, they are complaining there's a lot of negativity out there, but then they're contributing to it. So what's the counter to that, Andy?
Well, and part of the difficult truth on that is that a lot of people are practicing emotional avoidance and then calling it a positive mindset, when really they're just trying to avoid it, and they're just feeling good because they haven't moved past it, but because they're just bottling it up some more. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest problem, is people aren't letting it come to the surface and actually dealing with it. They are emotionally avoiding it, and then they call it progress.
Good point. Good point. So yeah, and that's going to be, I think, some of the things moving forward. I think that's going to be some of the things we get to focus on. And I realize I can be abrasive. Sometimes, 9 times out of 10, I'm not. But every now and then I get emotionally charged, and yes, I'm going to put out stuff people don't want to read. They don't want to see it. That's just life. The conclusion I've come to is, no matter how much I avoid, people can criticize me for avoiding. People can criticize me for engaging. I can lie and sugarcoat my point of view, or I can be, painfully honest with it. There's no way am I not catching some kind of criticism. So as long as I'm just like, I feel like I'm coming from a good place, my intentions are good, and I have the courage to share it, then I may as well be honest, because I'm going to catch it no matter what, And so to your point, Andy, yes, there's a lot of avoidance. It's so much easier to go like, well, this TikTok is going to be fun, and this one talks about factory farming. I don't think it might be a little early for me to watch this one. Like there are things there are a lot of truths about our society that are sharp edges that we don't want to admit. We don't want to admit that every time I eat a hamburger, that I was a part of a murder of an animal. It's like, well, I didn't kill it. I just rolled up to In-N-Out and bought it, like the ignorance that I embrace in order to keep my life squishy, and keep myself happy is not just isolated to me. It's something that's running rampant in society. So I think there will be a balanced way, though, that if we can create awareness without it being in people's face, I think that'll make it more people, I feel, would be willing to look at it. I don't know.
The part that's disheartening to me is that we've become a society that has to be one way or the other, instead of just accepting that each and every one of us is allowed to have a perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's not saying it's this fight that we get into where, no, I'm right and you're wrong. And instead of just allowing ourselves to be open and hear different perspectives, because when you truly listen to a perspective, whether you agree with it or not, you can usually see and figure out a person's history, their hurts, their pains, their traumas, their experiences, their loves, from their perspectives in different situations. And I just think that if we can open ourselves up to stop judging and just listen to someone's perspective and accept it for theirs, not meaning it has to be yours, you'll be able to start breaking some of those barriers where people can actually have discussions and be a little more open. Mm-hmm. But it's this having to be one side or the other, and I'm right and you're wrong, and I don't know, that's turned it crazy. Problems.
Yeah, you know what, and I'm glad you brought that up, because even though it's been, a very interesting ride over the last 10 days, I feel like it's evolved my communication skills. I feel like it's allowed me to see other people's point of views. It's allowed me to go like toe to toe with some of my friends and find out we're still friends. And that was great. That was like the best possible turnout. It was like, oh, we were both heard. You got to tell me what you think. I told you what I think. We were like, you're dumb. Yeah, haha. Anyway, high five, love you. Literally, that was a conversation. And like, perfect. Isn't it? It's like it was just honest. It was just like we were both honest. It was like, oh, we disagree. Okay, cool. Like, what do you do on Thursday? How are your kids? Like it wasn't so there wasn't so much venom there that like, oh, we're never going to talk again. Some people that came out with straight sideways with all this like hate and evil and stuff. I mean, that's just something I just don't tolerate. I didn't come back at them with it, but I'm like, okay, we're going to block you, and then we're going to calm down, and then I'm going to unblock you, and then we're going to talk peacefully like a week from now, Yeah. But 90% of the time, it was like people, I feel like they just wanted to get to be heard. And the people that I seem to get along, I seem to have the most valuable conversations with were people that were actually trying to contribute. They weren't just trying to fight. They didn't just want to be right. And then the people that could see all the gray areas and the nuances. So like you said, there's so much like, well, if you vote for this person, you're that. If you vote for that person, you're this. And it's like, you know what? I like, here's 100 check boxes next to each person, or call it a party, okay? I like 40 from here and 40 from there. Is that okay? Is it okay that I like some of your policies and not all of them? Like I don't 100% love my kid or not 100% not love my kid based on whether he got to school on time today. It's like I love my son for who he is, and there might be one or two decisions he's made that I don't agree with.
Yep.
So I think nuance is, the subtleties and the dimensions and the shades of gray. Like I think that's, especially in a country of 350 million people, that's literally a melting pot. I think once we get into that binary way of thinking and that tribalism, you're bound to end up in some kind of hate group sooner or later, because there's only shades of gray on this planet now. Like not all Japanese people were born in Japan anymore. That was 300 years ago. That was the truth. How many, I'm technically, my son and my daughter are first generation American because I was Canadian and my dad was Canadian, but my dad served in the armed forces here. So that's how I got my dual citizenship. So I'm an immigrant. Like this directly affects me. How I'm treated, how my children are treated. And it's funny because I'm not out there being like, behind closed doors, I'm like, okay, kids, like go out and hate as many people as you can today. Like don't put up with shit. No, I'm trying to teach them tolerance, even if they may not receive tolerance, I'm not trying to perpetuate the hate. So, I know there's about a billion other people that feel the same way that I do. It's like, why aren't we sticking together through COVID and having these conversations?
Right.
Yeah. So last week, really quick, let's see, 11:30, we're doing great on time. And thank you for all of your input. We talked a little bit about a name, which I pretty much just went with, which are the Jedis, the JE. It's an acronym. So obviously, as a guy who's into branding and graphic design, it's just how my mind works. It stands for justice, education, discernment, activation, inspiration, service. And I want those to be our focus. Justice, it's. I'm not talking. I'm talking about like civil liberties, that everybody deserves to have.
Right.
Education, so this is our chance to, from yoga teachers to DIYers to whoever, if you're teaching conflict resolution, this is an opportunity for us to start holding some online classes, and I will help promote, and hopefully the other people in the association will. And then discernment, that's about being able to decide between love and fear. It's not about us or them. It's like, what decisions will we make as a group, which will be governed by love and which will be governed by fear, and how can we steer out of the latter. Activation, so kind of call, like a call to action like you have on a website. It's like, the click here now. This is the, like, okay, like here, if your purpose is a Reiki healer or educator, facilitator, coach, yoga instructor, this is a great time to stand up and do whatever it is your purpose has asked you to do. I know that I've coached so many light workers and creatives that have a fear of being out there, and I know that's a great fear of being exposed. So that's why I can talk to that directly. That this is the time that we have to get over that fear. Inspiration is about ideas. It also means to be in spirit, which is interesting. That's where the word comes from. That's about creating new solutions. We have, like, feels like up until the last 10 years we had more solutions than we did problems. and now it seemed to flip. and and now we have a lot of challenges to come with to deal with, and so it's going to take some solutions that we've never even thought of before, but I think we can do it. And of course, service. So at the end of the day, this is about what can we give to our community, what can we contribute to this project, what can I give, how can I help you. That's service. Is some say service is the highest form of love. So yeah, that's what that stands for.
Absolutely.
So
Nice.
do we have any, do you have any questions or anything?
Not right now.
Okay. And then any ideas moving forward? Celeste, do you have any classes or anything coming up that I can help promote? Do you have any curriculum or anything that you'd want to share?
Well, I have classes, my mediumship classes that I teach, but I am doing right now, I am collecting warm socks and mittens and hats and coats and things for homeless.
Cool.
And then something that I started in San Diego. In San Diego, I used to once a week make, because I have 4 grown children.
Mm-hmm.
And I love cooking, and I miss cooking for all of them. So in San Diego, once a week, I would cook a whole feast on Sundays, like I was having my children over. And then I would package up little containers, and I would go bring it to the homeless.
Are
and
you
I would
adopting?
Am I what? Oh, sure. Come on over.
Sorry. Okay.
Anytime.
I've been losing weight.
Okay, come on over. And then I would go give meals to the homeless, and I would sit and talk with them. And being a medium, I would try to give them messages, because I found that that would help spark some things in them sometimes and give them a little hope. And just it was just my way of trying to give back to them. And I haven't been able to do it yet here in Salt Lake, because I had someone that would go with me in San Diego so that I felt safe. But I am going to try.
I'll go.
Perfect. I love it. I love it.
I would love to.
So yeah, I want to try to.
Selfishly fills my heart.
Right. I want to try to start doing that again. So I have started collecting that kind of stuff right now. Then I want to hopefully go out like right before Christmas and just give some stuff out to people and just try to talk to them and give some messages and see where they're at, and maybe give them a little peace, a little healing.
If somebody's listening to this, how can they contribute to your service project?
They can just shoot me an email at motheringhealing@gmail.com, and I would be happy to come pick it up, or they can come anytime that I'm at Celine Healing Studio and drop things off. They're not open like from 9 to 9. They don't have set hours. They're only open when someone's there working. But I can certainly just let them know whenever something can be dropped off, or I'm happy to go pick it up. And I would love it if you went out with me sometime. That would be great.
Yeah. You think I won't? Dude, and you know what? I have a GoPro that they have like a chest mount, like a body type of thing.
Yep.
So it's kind of nice. Like you just get some beef footage, and that's the contribution I can make. Like upload that to YouTube, and it's funny because people will throw shade and they'll be like, well, do it without the camera. And it's like, no, I will do it with the camera, because sometimes people only learn by seeing by example. And so by showing people that it's actually really easy, it's like, and we get into our minds like, oh, it's going to take days to get all these supplies, and it's going to take hours and days to get them out there. It's like, no, you can literally start this morning, and you could have your service project done by tonight, and have the rest of your week to yourself. And that level of service and karma that's the answer to all the things that people are complaining about. It's
Right.
like either don't complain, right, or go out and do something about it. But the worst is when we're sitting there pointing fingers and we're not trying to change it. It's like just adding to negativity. So I love seeing people just not complain, and yes, also be part of the solution, and also be service oriented, because it really, one of the things that I learned real young was, I had this old surfer dude in Venice Beach tell me, he's like, the one of the biggest problems with the planet is, he's like this line right here. He's like, oh, I got problems of my own. Right? I got problems of my own. That's the script that a lot of people are running. And that's one of the roots of why we're so separated, because people are in a way they're running this survival mindset. And what you're doing is the opposite of that. You know, when you're out there, you're like, okay, yeah, I got problems of my own, but it doesn't mean I can't give. You know, especially in this
Yeah.
country, you compare somebody even in the lowest income in America to some people in third world countries like the Philippines.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was 18. I lived in a house with 13 other people, but I still had a job. I had a bike. You know, I still had everything I needed to start a business. I still had everything. I had a library next door, like free information. The internet's free. We have so many resources, but being stuck in that I've got problems of my own is really one of the root causes, I think, of separation. So I think
I agree.
it's really important to have service projects to kind of snap us out of that.
Yep. I agree.
Cool. So let me know.
Absolutely. I
Cool.
will.
Cool. And then Orlando's on here. I know he's probably just listening. So he's just an amazing human being all around. But his mom is Anna Sierra, and she's been doing the Infinite Possibilities events for as long as I can remember. So shout out to their family. Thank you guys for everything you guys have done for the community. I mean, I've been to that show a ton of times. It's been rough the last few years, but yeah, they're a huge contributor. Andy messages me a few times a day to make sure that I'm sane, and so she's been, whether she likes it or not, she's become my trusted advisor, and she knows I'm on an emotional roller coaster.
We all need one of those.
Don't we? Yeah, we should all have like a
Mm-hmm.
grounding person in our life. So she reminds me I'm not drowning. So yeah, a lot of challenges this year. Let's see if there's anything else on the itinerary. So what I like to do is I like to review. So last week we talked a little bit about a name. We talked about what we could contribute. And then, okay, so moving forward, we want to talk about, so this time next week, we'll review what we talked about today as far as just like staying on track. So hopefully Celeste, you and I will have had time to go do this project between now and then. That sound like a goal?
It does sound like a goal.
Okay, cool. Cool. And that's how we, you know, we don't, for me, somebody who's struggled with ADD his whole life, that's how I stay on course, is I got to check in with myself, you know, every few days and make sure that all the stuff I wrote down is like, did I do that or did I go play Xbox? So next week we'll look back at this, and of course it'll give us time to think, because a lot of people, this is going to be their first time, and maybe they just wanted to come on here and listen for inspiration or ideas, or they just wanted to be like, hey, I heard that guy's weird, let's listen to him. But what might happen is there might be an idea or a project, or they might be a facilitator, or they might be looking for a class that one of us has to offer. And so I hope you guys reach out in that, if that is the case. My contact info is, if you can send an email to lucid distribution email@gmail.com. I do have a shorter one, but I can't remember what it is. I have like 6 of them. And that, yeah, if you guys want to get a hold of me, there's also my private message on Facebook, also Instagram. I'm all over the place. So just put in Zoe on the internet and I'm sure you'll find me. When's your next podcast?
Also,
what's that?
sorry. I was going to say, I will tell you also that with everything going on right now, like you said before, there are depression and alcohol and addiction is at an all-time high right now, and suicide. And being a suicide attempt survivor, I share all the time that if there is, I've done a lot of work to come out of that dark hole and to learn tools to stay out of that dark hole. And if there's ever anyone that needs someone to talk to and just feels like they have no one, call me. And there will not be a charge. So that is not even part of it. But just know that, get in touch with me. If you need someone to talk to, if you feel like you're drowning, please reach out.
Thank you. That's really important. It's really important. I'm sure I've gotten into one of the darkest places this year that I have in a long time, especially back in, I think it was about February, March. That's when it was just like, I mean, my 2020 started in November. That's like my car had blown it had blown its
I
engine.
remember.
Brinley and I had just split up, and I lost my investor in like a week's time. Like that was how I started my year, and then COVID. And I was like, okay, I'm like, I'm tough. My life has been shattered on a couple occasions. I picked the pieces up and I made it here. I'm like, I'm gonna make 2020 work. I'm going to Phoenix the hell out of this. And then the world shut down. And it was like, oh, like the one path that I had out got cut in half. And I was like, oh
Yep.
shit, this is a new level. I'm gonna have to, and like you said, I think a lot of people have had to reinvent themselves because the path we've been on has worked for us, and now in some cases it's just wiped off the face of the earth,
Yes.
and now you have to
Yep.
reinvent yourself. So thank you so much for sharing that. I know that takes vulnerability and courage,
No problem.
for sure. Well, and that's so my class, the Soul Root Alchemy class, it's a tool that I've a writing journaling tool that I've been using for the better part of 10 years. And I started doing it because I had just gotten clean. I had been drinking and doing oxy and Klonopin and morphine, and smoking weed and drinking coffee. Like there wasn't anything I wasn't doing. Let's put it that way. And so I quit everything cold turkey and got super sick. And then once I luckily stayed clean, but I realized that the mindset hadn't changed yet.
Mhm.
So that's I was like, okay, I was like, I started to get in touch with the idea, with the fact that my subconscious was running a lot of bad programs and that I had a lot of bad habits. So I started with positive affirmations, which I fully endorse. But there's also with positive affirmations, sometimes as going through the positive affirmation process, there's these remnants of these negative energies that I'm not really addressing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So like, for example, like, I'd look in the mirror and I'd say, okay, I am abundant. And so my heart knows that to be true. But my mind goes, not when you look at your bank account, and now we've got this turmoil. I've got this inner conflict because it's like, well, I know this to be true, but my mind, my ego, whatever you want to call it, wants to say that that's not true. So now I realize, well, now I have beliefs around abundance. I have this negative charge, and I'm like, so where does that come from? Where does that go? What do I do with this thing? And that was my first lead brick in the alchemical process. I was like, okay, well, I can't just ignore these emotions. How can I process these emotions? So rather than going from A to B, I decided to create a separate path that said, okay, well, what are all the emotions that I have around abundance? Well, fear and lack and, not feeling like things are fair or uh, like I was never taken care of. Like it really took me down a whole road of self-discovery I would have never imagined had I just ignored it and thrown it out the window. I would have never discovered all these beliefs I had. So then you go into there, and then, it's like, okay, well, I get these things need to heal. They're not true. And I can essentially release these and I can create whatever I want outside of this. So if I believe that, um, or if I have what is it like? I feel frustrated. There's a simple, when it comes to money, I felt frustrated. Well, what's the opposite of that? Um, Acceptance,
Mm.
right? Okay,
Satisfied.
that's a much better energy to operate from,
Mhm.
right? And that's a much better goal than just to say, well, this is how I feel, and there's the end of it. That's the end of the story. That doesn't have to be true. It's like, this is how I have felt in the past, and now moving past this, I can feel differently. I can choose to feel acceptance and courage and power. And so that's how I started to get out of the stuff that wasn't working for me, was observing that it was there, but not accepting it as the end of the story. It's just a chapter, you know. And listen to anybody who's been a powerful speaker. They always talk about how there's that period of their life that sucked, you know, and that was their turning point. You know, they were never like, well, I was born on the east side, never had any problems, no addiction, no
Yeah.
challenges. I've been rich and happy my whole life, and I can tell you how to do it too. Just be born into my family, you know? And there you have it. There's
Right.
so
If that was only the way our journeys went.
yeah. It's like, next time you incarnate into a human body, choose a billionaire as a father, and that's how you're gonna avoid all these abundance beliefs and issues. And it's like, well, unfortunately, yeah, that's not really how it works. So yeah, that literally respecting positive affirmations for what they were, but also accepting the fact that I'm human and I'm going to have fears and hangups about stuff. I do have trauma in some places. I do have triggers. Go ahead.
And that's okay. You work through them. And that's why we're here, to work through those lessons.
And that's what coaches are for. And that's what teachers are for. And that's what parents are for. And that's what friends and family and support is for, right?
And you do have a phenomenal process at transmuting those. And maybe you could put a link of your Solar Works or Soul Work Alchemy. I can't remember. The one off of YouTube. Maybe you could put a link on the bottom of this. So if anybody wanted to check it out, and then they could ask you questions or hit you up on a one-on-one or an actual class about it, in case they're interested.
Yes, absolutely.
An idea.
Yes.
Because it's a great process.
Thank you. It's kept, thank you. It's personally, if it didn't work, I would have dropped it, you know, over the last 10 years. If I didn't like it, but it's free, you know. It's like, can you find a pen and paper, you know, and that's it at 3 a.m. Always. You can't always find a coach, you know. You don't always have a sponsor at 3 a.m, but getting a pen and paper is pretty easy, is not a lot to ask. So that's, I didn't mean for it to turn into, can't even see it. Yeah, I didn't mean for it to turn into a journal. It just did. It just, because once I got past that, and you know, it's something that came up in later, as you know, in stages. And as you know, like, evolution isn't a straight line. It's not a circle, it's a spiral. You master something, and then, you know, the universe is like, great, you've got level 10 figured out. Here's level 11, you know?
Yep.
Oh, you figured out patience? Great. Now it's like, patience. Oh, okay. How did you, okay, well, I learned to stand on this rope. This is what it's like without falling. Okay, cool. There's level 1. Now we're going to shoot flaming arrows at you. That's level 2. Isn't that kind of how it feels?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, okay, cool. You can dodge the flaming arrows. Okay, now we're going to shoot cannonballs at you. Great. Now here comes the dragon. And it's just like, dude, I thought I learned this. And the universe is like, you did. That's why I keep sending you new stuff. And it's a painful but necessary engine of evolution, because humans have a history of becoming complacent when we're not getting challenged.
And when we realize that it's just another level up, then it loses some of its pain. It's much easier to work out of it, you know what I mean, and not get pulled down that rabbit hole.
Think how tough we'll be in 2021.
Right? Well, Zoe, this has been an honor to be here with you, and a pleasure. I do have to get off and head to my next phone call for the Wednesday.
Yes, you do.
But thank you so much for inviting me.
What's it called?
The Conversations for Clarity.
There you go. Just getting you your plug.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, every Wednesday at 12 Mountain Standard Time.
Perfect.
So
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Talk to you soon.
You too.
Okay, bye. And it is 11:56. So do you have any other comments or anything, Andy? No? Okay.
No, not today.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm really stoked because we just picked up a service project, and that's great. That's the direction I want to go. So it's already working.
So now if anybody can help donate
Mm-hmm.
time, more products, then that would be great.
Mm-hmm. I think I'll do a fundraiser. I'll probably make some Jedi t-shirts and some stickers, and then if people want to buy those, we'll take other than the cost of the materials of the goods sold, I'll take all the profit and go buy food, and then we'll go give it to people. But if there's chocolate almonds in there, I'm calling them. Those are mine. But other than that,
Well, if it's stuff like the socks, probably hand warmers, granola bar types of things, those are always easy to throw in a bag and keep it simple on top of whatever Celeste also mentioned that she could use.
what about does the dollar store sell hand heaters and stuff? Because I know when we were doing the what are they called, the bags, when you do bags with toothpaste and stuff in them and tampons, what are those called?
Yeah, the hygiene bags.
Yeah, hygiene. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
Hygiene.
Hygiene. Yeah, when we were doing hygiene bags, there was a ton of stuff at the dollar store. So maybe we can either go buy some or see if a store will donate. But yeah, I'm down to get behind her project. So, and then I'll probably send out an email to all the people here in Salt Lake, and yeah, we'll see what we can generate. Let's just see what happens when we, put ourselves out there. Sound good? Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you guys for tuning in. I did record this. I will upload it to my YouTube channel and Facebook. Much love out there. Talk to you soon.